Hey everybody, welcome to Photography of Director. I'm Vitaly Boxer. Today we have Ethan Young, and we're going to discuss a couple of music videos he's been directing for the last year or two. And some of them are really cool, especially the latest one, which I've included a link in the blog and everything, so check it out there. If you want to see the whole thing, I'm only going to have clips and pieces. So there you go. Take a look, listen up, and enjoy. Okay, welcome Ethan.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're on Photography of Director podcast, and I think this is episode 12, so tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I am a filmmaker, young filmmaker based in New York City. I've been mostly directing music videos the last year and a half, but I've also done short films before, shot some stuff as a cinematographer. And to make my money, I AC often for you.
That's great. So I brought you on for, I don't talk to a lot of ACs, obviously, on this podcast. It's mostly directors or producers. So the reason I got you here is because I am interested in young directors, how they start out. If you've been listening to the last 11, 12 episodes of this, I'm always talking about how filmmakers make their movies, right? And,
totally.
And you're a good case because we work together. You're my second or first sometimes. Sometimes you camera op for me in different projects. And I never knew you had a real directing side of you until recently, basically. So,
sure. And
then I saw your work, your latest couple of music videos, and I was quite impressed that you are not only directing these things, you're doing basically special effects. You're using technology the way I think it should be used in terms of high-resolution images and the way you can crop in and shift them around and do all these cool things with it. And you're doing stop motion and motion graphics and After Effects work. So all those things are the reason I brought you in to discuss. One is how it is to survive in the film business, being an AC or anything else. And the second part to how to transition from being an employee to doing your own things, basically.
Totally.
So I want to show them a piece of your work, because the best way to know somebody is to actually see a piece of their work.
I agree.
Let's go to your music video. Tell us about this latest music video while I sort of track it down. Or send me a link real quick so I can put it up.
Sure. Well, this is a music video by a band comprised largely of very close friends of mine from college, which is how I kind of got hooked up with the band in the first place. They have been working on a record for the last year or so, and this is going to be the second single off the record. They released a single back in the fall with a lyric video, but this is the first single that has a music video off the record, and so they wanted to do it up a bit. And brought me on and kind of gave me carte blanche, which is nice. The nice part about working with your close friends is that they more or less just trust you to do your job and do it properly and have their best interests at heart and kind of understand what their band is about. So that was pretty great in that I basically just got to kind of do whatever I felt was right and not have to navigate the sticky areas of artist image and how they want to present themselves and all these type of things. I was kind of able to build what I felt would be best for them, and with their approval, of course. But
and they trusted you, obviously, one, because they know you, but two, because you put up your own money on the line.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's
this is a big thing I wanted to get into.
Well,
this, yeah.
In that we kind of went half and half on the music video, which not only is just a way to get any project off the ground to invest your own money, but it also kind of gives you the leverage to say, well, listen, I'm as much of a partner in this as you are. I'm not just a hired gun in this. I'm investing my time, my abilities, and my money in this project, so I have a serious say in how things go down. And
I mean, that's a deal you don't say no to as a poor musician.
Yeah. Completely.
This is important. I'll show the video first. We'll continue that discussion about how to transition to being a director is, unfortunately, by putting yourself out there and spending your own money,
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on a sec. Well, let's see the video because it's pretty fucking cool.
something, but you wouldn't name it. I can't be trusted for acting like I was so shameless. You and I, we have nothing in common. You don't say what you want, just that it's wrong. And I don't know what that means, but I'm sure that I want the same thing. Mine can't be trusted, yours only wants it in public. Then without warning, we both feel so bad in the morning. And every night you're dead to our feeling, at least that's what you say to your friends. You don't mean it. I'm going down and I think I'm above it. I can't believe my luck. Everybody has to touch with yours. We can do just what you want sometimes. Yeah, it's yours.
All right, buddy, that was great.
Thank you.
I really enjoy that video, and I really like the band.
Thank you. Yeah. They have a record coming out this year that's primo. So I'll let you know when that drops.
Yeah, I should get a free copy. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly. You've earned it.
But yeah, I've earned it. I have put you on. That's why I did this for, folks. I expect gifts. But no, it's a really cool video and cool song. Actually, part of being a good video director is picking a good band to do a video for.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough in this case to just have a lot of close friends who are in great bands. This is one of many, so I consider myself quite blessed in that regard.
Right, but the shitty bands, you're not going to do a free video for them. So what's cool about that, I mean, whoever's watching it who knows anything about film, you're using high-res images to push in, pull out, freeze, move it around. You're doing all these cool editing. Honestly, this video is edited really well.
Yeah.
So forget about the shooting. You could tell you shot it in like one studio. Maybe you didn't have a big budget, but then you did everything in post that made it just, pop.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, tell us about putting it together. And do you mind going into some details about budget and everything?
Yeah, no, sure. The budget of the video was about $5.5 thousand.
$5.5 thousand, folks.
Yeah.
Not million.
No. Which is not nothing, but it's certainly small in terms of music video budgets. I was lucky enough to have a lot of close friends who were down to commit their time pro bono for this. I was investing a significant chunk of my own money into it, so I could kind of put my money where my mouth was. I think there are some situations in which a director or a producer or someone will be making money on a production themselves, but somehow think it's okay to get lower crew members on there for free because they're going to learn something. And I think most of the time it's just exploitation. So I feel like if I'm getting people on a production for free, I have to either be also doing it for free or actually losing money on it for it to seem like an equitable situation. And even beyond that, I promised all of them, like anytime you're doing something, I'm there, whether it's getting you coffee, whether it's pulling focus, like whatever it is, I'm there for you for free. Consider this a favor that I'm happy to return at any point.
So
and I think
sorry,
what you're saying?
No, go ahead. Finish.
That's a key part of being able to do anything that looks decent on a small budget is being able to like have a crew of people who are willing to do you those favors and know that those favors will be reciprocated, and maintain that goodwill.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
What did you spend money on, actually? So if the crew was free, what were the costs associated with this?
The studio space, we shot in there for 2 days. There's so many setups in this video that there was no feasible way to do this in one day. It would have been like an 18-hour day of just non-hustling, or non-stop hustling. And so we shot it over 2 days at the studio in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, called Shangri-La. And they're like $1,500 a day, but they cut us a deal for $1,000 a day, and it's a pretty large studio, which was nice. It has a kitchen and everything, and a black wall to shoot against, and a white cyc to shoot against, and just a bunch of random props in the studio, which was cool. And then I would say the camera package, lenses, all of that was about 900, 1,000 all told. The lighting and grip equipment was about 800. Food was about like 300 to 500. Production design was about 400 or 500. I think that's kind of where it caps out.
Right. And
Think
obviously you couldn't hire an editor for this. Your plan was always to edit it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't even have wanted to hire an editor if I'd had the money. Frankly, I think, like, if you're, especially with a music video that is so much about editing, and one like this where it's so clearly like one vignette shot in one specific way to the next vignette shot in a very specific way, if as a director you don't have an idea of how you want to edit it, then like why are you even there? You know, so I knew that I wanted to edit this not only because I had a very clear idea of how I wanted to edit it, but also because I knew I was going to be doing the effects work, and it was going to be a much more seamless transition into the effects work if I edited it myself and could control the exact steps of the workflow at every point.
Here's a question. So when you were pitching the band, obviously you're friends, but when you were pitching them on your idea, did you have boards available so they would see? Because this is a hard thing to explain. We're going to zoom in. We're going to crop it here. We're going to do this. We're going to rotate you around. Like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? You know?
Yeah, I mean,
how did you explain that?
I'm fortunate enough that the band members, or at least a large portion of the band members, are all pretty cinema literate. And one of them was even a film major with me in college. And so I actually did just hand them a text edit document with every single shot that you see in there described out in words.
Can I get a copy of that? Can I post that on with the podcast?
Sure. I'll email that to you.
Yeah, later. I mean, that's...
But yeah, it was really just like the entire video broke down in words, which I know is not the best way to do things, but because I knew I was going to be directing the video, frankly, it's just like a bit of laziness on my part. I felt like, listen, I'm going to do the video. I'm going to describe it to them so they like can sign off on it, but I don't need to put in a massive amount of legwork to pull like all the references that it would take, because when something's in your head, maybe it came from somewhere that you can't quite, but you don't always know where it came from. Mm-hmm. So finding that exact reference that illustrates the exact image that you have in your head can be really hard, and just pretty time consuming. And so I felt that it wasn't necessarily a good use of my time to be creating an incredibly slick looking PDF deck with all these reference images and like all this stuff in there to like really explain the idea, when I knew they were just going to sign off on it and be happy with it if I was as clear as possible about it, you know?
So just to go back, because I know we spoke about this earlier, some things were kismet. Like there was a motorcycle in the place. You just put that in because you probably needed some more shit in there.
Yeah.
But then the other stuff, obviously, the chess pieces and done with stop motion, it looked like, right?
Well, that was actually the movement of the chess pieces. The chess set that we got, there were the bottoms of the pieces were hollowed out. And so we were able to get, my production designer owns some rare earth magnets. And so she put rare earth magnets in the bottom of the chess pieces and then attached another magnet to like the end of a long wire, and then put the wire under the chessboard and pulled the piece along in kind of slow motion. And then in post, I sped it up so that it looked like shrunk.
I see. Very cool.
Yeah,
because it looked a little stop motion-y, in fact. Like
totally. Yeah. And I was cool with it having that look because I wanted it to feel a little like animated or robotic almost.
And how did you, I mean, to get a little bit more technical, how did you do was that just green paint splattered on the floor and on the wall, like the last logo? How did you do that stuff?
Oh, the
what leather?
Band logo at the very end? Okay, so that was one of the band members is also an illustrator, and so I told him, like, give me a kind of 80s horror movie looking like paint / logo of the band name, and he painted that out in red on a sheet of white paper, and I took that and took a photo of it and then removed the white, so I basically just had a vector of just the band name, and then we shot the lead singer spitting a big mouthful of water onto a glass sheet that was held in front of the camera. And then I timed it so that the logo appeared onto the glass sheet right as the water hit it. And then I motion tracked the movement of the glass sheet and then attached that to the logo so that it looked like the logo was attached to the glass sheet and they would move together.
It was really cool. That was a good little
Thank you.
effect. And the other paint in between was just
That
paint
was just
splattered
me
on the floor?
splattering primer onto Duvetine. That's nothing more than that.
Well, I like to hear that because it's
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
so
it's
simple.
very much a mix of like high technology and low technology.
Primer onto Duvetine. That's good. So, all right. So we got a little bit about the budget, and obviously, how long did it take in post to? Because that seems like a pretty intricate video to put together.
Sure. Well, the question of how long is always a difficult one because
You're working at the same time, I
Yeah,
assume.
exactly. If I had been tasked for like 1 month to just do nothing but this music video, and like nothing else had to conflict, things would have gotten done much faster. But because I'm like going onto set and working on other projects in the meantime for money, in part to be recouping the losses from this music video, things just get extended out. So let me see. We shot it at the end of October, like the last weekend in October, and then I had to fly to Austin in early November. So I didn't get actually editing the video until like mid-November. It was done. The actual cut of it was done by like the kind of end of November. Then I did effects work pretty nonstop into like the mid-December, and then it was done by mid-December and handed it off to the band, and they have just been kind of like shopping it around since then, slowly going from like one outlet to the next, being like, do you want to premiere it? Do you want to premiere it? Do you want to premiere it? And it came out like last week.
And how's it doing?
It's doing well. I mean, it's everyone who's seen it seems to have enjoyed it. It's gotten posted a few other places. They're still kind of shopping it around to other places. So these things kind of like roll out over a period of time. Like there was a video that I did back in that got released back in like early September, and it's still occasionally getting posted on blogs. It's like, check this out, like today, So these things kind of have a longer life than you would expect for a music video in terms of just getting it seen by other people. And there's different stages of it rolling out, on different platforms.
So obviously, being an independent director, music video independent director, is hard, and that's part of this discussion that you are actually working at a job, which I assume you like, of course, for the most part. But that's not what you want to do, right? You want to direct.
Sure.
You want to direct movies or music videos or something along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, at least at the age of 25, that's what I want to do. I'm leaving open the possibility that I wake up, on my 30th birthday and go, you know what? It's time to be a lawyer. But until then, I'm really
I don't see that
enjoying
happening,
directing
Ethan.
stuff.
I don't see
Hey,
that.
I went to college with the intention to go pre-law. That is no joke.
All right. Well,
I
I
was
went.
gonna
I was
HR
going to be a doctor, and look, well, I'm doing a podcast now in my underwear. So
We fucked up.
yes, we did. I would agree with you there. I'm going to go cry in this corner. But yeah, I mean, tell me, is it? We know it's hard, but I want from your side of the perspective, because you're waiting. You want to direct. Period. You're doing everything to make that happen, and you're spending your own money. So reach out to those kids who are listening to this, basically, and tell them what they have to do in order to direct movies, and that nobody's going to give it to them.
Sure. I mean,
Or direct music videos, of course.
you have to be in it because you love the actual process of it. That's really the only reason to make really any art form a career of yours, is that you love the actual process of it. And in doing that, you kind of need to divorce the outcome or the results or the response from what you do. That's not to say ignore criticism, but it is, ignore or at least downplay the importance of how well something does once it's released. If you make a short film and you feel that the process of it was profoundly satisfying to you in a way that no other work is, and even the editing of it, the shooting of it, the planning of it, all that just makes you in a real way happy, where you wake up and you say, like, I am enjoying doing this and it feels like a productive use of my brain, and then it goes out into the world and it dies, you need to still hold on to that part that made you happy during the making of it. And if you can't hold on to that and privilege that above everything else, then it's going to be a really, really rough road, and you may never be satisfied with your own work.
But by getting more specific in terms of,
Sure.
we have a lot of people in the film, who we work with even, who always talk about, I want to direct.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't directed anything. Give them some advice.
Sure. I mean, if you want to direct, and you are waiting for some third party entity to tell you that you're a genius and you should be directing their thing, and here's a boatload of money to do that, that is never going to happen. It is never going to happen. There was maybe a time in the film industry where kids plucked out of USC were suddenly, working on the Universal lot, directing television shows and stuff, but that time is long since gone. Pretty much all directing talent is just culled from a scene in which people are already displaying their talent in an independent manner. And in order to do that, you need to self-start, which often means financing your own productions. As big of a bummer as that is, especially on your bank account, no one is going to give you the money to direct anything but yourself, especially when you have no work out there. And if you think that you suck, that's because you haven't done it enough. And the only
that's
way,
the thing. You have to do it.
yeah,
You have to keep doing it.
You have to do it. You have to keep doing it. And the only way to do that is to fund your own productions. And that doesn't necessarily mean like mortgage your house to make a film, but it means like find a music video or a short film or some kind of story that you can do on a budget that is manageable to you with whatever your career is or financial situation, and make that. Because making something, no matter how cheap it is better than making nothing. And it is a constant kind of snowball effect in not only your abilities, but also the world's response to your abilities. So I think a lot of people put directing on a pedestal where it's like the first thing that I ever direct needs to be like a major feature film that costs $2 million. And maybe that works out for some people, but for the majority of the world, for the majority of the directors out there in the world, they started with, a Super 8 camera in hand, and they made something really tiny, and it sucked, but whatever. They made the next thing. And then suddenly they were shooting on 16, and then suddenly they were shooting on an Alexa.
You're really talking to the old people. You're talking to the old people here.
Well, those are the people whose careers you can track
Right.
over the course of 30, 40 years.
No. If any big director that we mean you probably like, they started making their own things no matter what. There is no one was handed anything. I think even Spielberg was making movies as a kid.
Totally.
And he was handed a lot of things, obviously.
And
later
also
on.
to not devalue the importance of those things. It's a constant growing process, which means that the things that you make just between you and your friends that you think are a total joke are, regardless, a part of your growth as a filmmaker. If you're making like silly little action movies with your friends in 8th grade on a camcorder, that's part of you learning to understand how to make films just as much as, working on a set is. It's obviously another step in the process that is more complex than another, but it's all a part of a really long-term arc that I think you need to understand and respect, and not expect to suddenly come in at rung number 5,000.
Well, and that's why I, wanted to bring that up, because I do get asked often about how do I be a DP, since I DP a lot. I go, well, I worked for 2 years for free before anyone thought of me as a DP. So
Sure.
you have to work basically for nothing for a while. And it's easier now because you can join small productions and make a small stipend or something just to learn how it goes, but nobody's going to give you money for a movie with no track record. That would be idiotic on an investor's part,
Yeah, it's still a business, and investors need to have confidence in the person that they're putting at the helm, and the best confidence that they can have is a proven track record of good work.
Right. So if you've made a movie and if you've sold one before, you'll get more money the next time, hopefully. That's at least the hope. Let's talk more about your other projects, because this last video is kick-ass, but you've made a couple of others as well. So tell me how it started at the beginning, the first video.
Well, the first video that I made, I graduated college and I decided I wanted to be a cinematographer, which is why I started working in camera to begin with, was because I wanted to get near cinematographers and see how they do what they do, because my school was more theory analysis based than it was production based.
What school?
Wesleyan University in Connecticut. And so I just wanted to get as much hands-on technical experience. And so the first year and a half out, I was becoming increasingly frustrated with the fact that I felt like I didn't have agency over whether or not I was able to work as a cinematographer, because you're basically riding the coattails of a director when you're a cinematographer, and you're not making the production happen yourself. You're hoping that you get kind of brought onto a production.
Preach it.
And
That's exactly right.
yeah,
And it's worse than that, just to bring up what you're saying, because my whole career depends on how well a producer and a director does, not how well I do personally.
no.
Which hurts me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to so many cinematographers who are like, I'm so sick of having someone see my work and then be like, well, it looked great, which is code for like the movie sucked, but like you did great.
Right.
And the
like
thing
it
is,
matters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. At the end of the day, as important as the cinematographer's job is, the script and the direction will always trump it. A film with shitty cinematography but a great screenplay that's well directed is still gonna land for people in a way that a shitty script and a poorly directed film with beautiful cinematography, like I've seen so many of those, and they're not my favorite films.
So this led to you.
So this led me to being like, all right, well, I just want to make something that's my own, that I can have ownership of, and at least if it sucks, I can say like, well, it's my fault that it sucked. So a friend came to me saying like, hey, I'm starting up this band. We need a music video. Would you be down to do the music video? And I said, yeah, sure. Let's give it a shot. I'm not really trying to direct right now, but let me try. And so I came up with this crazy idea that involved like, two guys unleashing this like ghostly internet force that then sucked them into their computer and like possessed one of them, and all this stuff that would require just a lot of effects work that I'd never had any experience doing before. But I was like, well, might as well challenge myself. What are the stakes? It's a friend's band. Like, it'll be cool regardless.
Who's paying? Who's paying in this case? In this first video of yours?
In this case, I managed to get the budget so low that the band was willing to pay for it themselves. It was like $1,000 for the whole thing. But nobody was paid, myself included. And what resulted was that after we were done shooting, because I hadn't really done any of this effects work before, I was stuck in post with footage that was really, really, really hard to work with in post. Shaky camera, moving subjects, strobing lights, underexposed, all this stuff. And months and months and months in post, just trying to get like basic stuff done, to the point where like I might as well have animated the whole video.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to show it, but did you salvage it in your opinion? Is it good?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. This is the first one, Brothers, the UV rays video.
Okay, we're going to go to it.
Congratulations, you won. 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 Congratulations, you won.
I'm going to pause it here. I want to talk to you about, obviously, this video, way more grungy, way more like nowhere near as polished as your like third video.
Uh-huh.
Is that the $5,000 or is that, because the $5,000 is more money, but is it that, or is it just you got better at doing all these things?
I think it's both. I think we're shooting on, the difference in price of camera is vast between the two. We shot that one on a Blackmagic cinema camera that I own. That camera costs like $2,000. It's a great looking camera, but it costs $2,000. And the wet leather video we shot on a Dragon, Red Dragon, which costs what? Like you would know best, like $50,000. What is it?
I guess when you put all the pieces together, yes, more than that.
Yeah. So there's going to be a massive difference in the crispness and the quality of the footage. The other difference is that first video was the first time I had ever worked with After Effects, period.
Well, I was going to say, that part looks great. Because like the editing is what saves that sort of more dingier, grungier look of video.
Sure.
So I still see a stop motion thing that you're doing, or you have a lot of that throughout all of your stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're compositing all these things together always. And you knew nothing about After Effects when you were doing it.
When I did that first video, no, I knew nothing about After Effects. I didn't.
I mean, that's hard. That's actually difficult.
I mean, that's why the video took so long.
How many years?
But I think with those kind of things, the initial learning curve is quite steep. So the first one you do is going to be a really, difficult experience, but you're also going to learn a massive amount very quickly. And then it kind of levels off, and then you get like incrementally better and better and better over a long period of time, as opposed to getting from nowhere to like passable in a relatively short period of time.
What did you do in that video for the face and the TV?
For the face and the TV, that was actually practical, kind of. I shot video of myself. I painted my face green, and I shot video of myself behind a blue screen, and then composited it out. So I just had my eyes and my mouth, and then I took a kind of static video and put the eyes and the mouth over the static video and like sapphirized them, so they kind of had like a bulgy effect to them, and then took that video and we plugged it into the monitor and played it on the monitor live on set.
Oh, that was practical.
That was practical, yeah.
Oh, wow. I was positive that was a post thing.
I didn't trust my ability to be able to like perfectly motion track that onto the screen as we went through, and I think I was correct in that, just because the quality of the footage, the worse or the less clean the footage is, the more motion there is, the less perfectly in focus it is at any given point, makes the motion track really, really hard and less believable. So we did that practically. Once the like computer face is on his face, that was just like moving it frame by frame, literally at a certain point, because I just couldn't.
You can't track that.
Motion track that. No, it was terrible.
It seems like a complicated, long process, and I've done all of this stuff too out of necessity, and I don't envy you for that.
No, but I can't say that I didn't learn a massive amount in that process. In my room day after day, being like, this just doesn't work. I need to do it the hard way.
Right.
And every experience that I've done after that, I've known, all right, what are the pitfalls? What are the things that are going to screw over the guy in post, who is me?
This is really good. Why don't you just go into, I mean, you're doing the whole AC thing on set, but like you have a whole post career ahead of you, it looks like, because you are doing some complicated things that you have to have some talent to do, especially your latest video. I can tell that you can easily get hired for some of these jobs.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think it less comes down for me to like a desire to be better at post, so much as it is a desire to understand every single part of the filmmaking process, and to let the things that you're doing at the very last stages inform how you pre-produce something.
I mean, that's very smart. That's obviously, and the fact that you're going in knowing what you're going to do in post and how long it's going to take. Just like you said, tracking doesn't always work, so there's a pitfall to that. So you have to know when that won't work.
Yeah, I mean, for better or for worse, I don't like being forced to rely on other people for information or expertise or anything like that. Right. I always want to get people's advice on things, and in filmmaking, it's a collaborative medium necessarily, and you need to involve other people and the talents of other people, and they make your work better and they expand the vision of it all. But in terms of thinking as a producer, I think it's so important to just at least have a basic fundamental understanding of every part of the process. And so when you're shooting something on set and all right, in DaVinci Resolve, the color correcting program, I can take that little hotspot over there and bring it down by, a couple stops, and that will save us 20 minutes right now of trying to perfectly flag it off.
Right.
Like, do it, go. You've just saved yourself 20 minutes. And usually
that will make you a better director, obviously, because we work with we work directors, producers all the time, where they're like, well, we want this to look, but you're going to spend an hour here doing that when there are post tools now. I know it sucks to say do it in post, but honestly, sometimes that is the easier route than having 20 people waiting for that one thing to happen.
I think there's a time and a place for the we got to do it for real, we got to do it on set attitude, and there's a time and a place for we should do this in post. And I think knowing when doing something in a kind of fake posty After Effects-y DaVinci Resolve way is going to have that look and really is going to stand out to people, and knowing when the viewer is not going to be able to tell the difference is the difference between, I think, being a good producer and a good director and being, someone who's kind of clueless.
Right.
And I think I've seen some people kind of dogmatically say, like, no, I don't do anything in post. I don't do anything, everything is on set. And usually those people end up not making their day, not getting the shots that they want, and sacrificing the overall quality of their vision for some kind of like principle that I think they don't fully understand the implications
Well,
of.
they don't understand it because they're not sitting in front of After Effects and DaVinci for 12 hours. And honestly, this is an important skill because I actually was doing 10 years ago what you're doing now. I sat there and I learned how to do it, and I learned the pitfalls because now I can give a director or producer some information about that. Whether they believe me or not, that's totally up to them and how much time they want to waste. But a lot of people do make me waste a lot of time trying to control little things that I feel like, come on. Like, for example, I'll give you this is a perfect example. Like, a lot of times you see something on the street, like a little box or a sign, and it's in your shot, and everyone's like, oh, I can't have that brand. I can't have that brand in my movie. I can't have this. What the fuck are you talking about? Okay? Do a little corner tracking, all right? And stick whatever brand you want over there and sell your own underwear, okay?
Totally.
So, which will cost you almost no time. As opposed to me now trying to, let's change position, let's move our whole crew over, let's whatever we have to do to avoid that thing,
And it's constantly a game of priorities too. In that, maybe if you're working on a $80 million art film, if you're Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, you have the time to say, no, we're going to do everything this very specific
sorry,
way.
I didn't
want it to have this
specify.
certain look.
I didn't specify I wasn't on an Iñárritu film.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in that position, you have the luxury to do every single thing exactly the way that you want to do it. But in independent filmmaking and low budget filmmaking, it's a constant game of what is the biggest priority right now. Is
Right.
the biggest priority the integrity to be able to say that we did everything in camera, or is the biggest priority making your day and getting the shots and being able to communicate the specific thing that you want to communicate in the way that you want to communicate it? And I think sometimes people get lost in that game of priorities and don't always end up doing what's best for their production and for ultimately what the person at the other end of this is going to be seeing.
Anyway, all right, so let's go on to, I want to see your next video because actually I saw it and there's a big improvement between this first music video and then the next one, like huge. Tell us briefly about it, and was there a much more massive budget, or once again you just got better?
I think that one was that I just knew what I was doing, and in the first one I didn't know what I was doing. And I think there's a certain didn't know what he's doing seat of your pants charm in the first one that I do like a lot still.
Yeah.
But in the second one I went in going, all right, here are all the things that really screwed me over on the first one, and let me do a video that's the opposite of those things. So if in the first video the camera's always handheld, it's going to be always locked off on this one. If the subject is always moving in the other one, the subject is going to be static. If the lights are strobing on the other one, the lights are going to be consistent and still on this one, and just give myself.
You literally went the opposite. You went 180 right
Totally
away,
the
right.
opposite. Yeah, I was like, I want to give myself the most straightforward position in terms of After Effects, and challenge myself in other places that are not going to needlessly eat up time, because I think no one sees how long it took you to motion track crappy footage. That's not something that really has an effect
No one
on
cares.
your viewing experience. No one cares. What people do care about is something like stop motion animation, where every single minute that you put in creating that animation has an effect on people. And I think it has an effect on how something looks, and it's unique. And that's something where handcrafted effort really is visible. And so the idea for this one was that I wanted to do something where it would be relatively simple in terms of the After Effects work, in terms of compositing and masking and all those things, and not having to motion track, but the process of animation would be where I challenged myself.
Okay, so I'm going to go to it, show them, and then we'll talk more about it, all right?
Sure.
Though she's not mine, she's with me. Time will tell. I cannot see Siamese men in their heart. Always saw
All right, that's really cool.
Thank you.
I mean, what an improvement. So tell me a bit about it and how you met even this guy. Is this one of your friends too?
Yeah. This is another close friend from school, and the guy who helped.
Let me ask you, let's take it back. Did any of your friends become filmmakers in school? Or did they all become... did they all
I went
realize?
to Wesleyan is a liberal arts university with a film school in it.
Okay.
So what that necessarily means is that even if you have a lot of friends in the film major, you have probably more friends who are not.
Well, that's good. You met rounded out people, I guess.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's also one of the strengths of the school that a lot of people take away from it is that you aren't just completely surrounded by all people with the same goals as you. You have people with a genuine diversity of ambition, and that, at least in my case, has meant like tremendously fruitful collaborations with friends.
Right. Okay. So tell me about the video.
Yeah. So
How you actually made it, because it looks like an intricate video.
Yeah, so we shot all the animation stuff first. We shot that over a period of 2 weeks.
Well, why don't you show? I was going to ask you that because originally when I saw the video, I thought it was an artist had drawn a face and you were animating that face, but you actually have the face right next to you, don't you?
Hold on, there it is.
Yeah,
Right there.
that was a clay face that we saw in his mouth. That's
There it
crazy. That looks nothing like it, by the way.
It's the magic of color correction.
So you made that.
Yeah, made that. Yeah. It's just a whole bunch of like normal stop animation type clay, like the kind that I frankly was playing with when I was a little kid. Sculpted around a box just for the shape of the head, so we didn't have to fill the whole thing with clay because that's expensive. And then we took a set of doll eyes. I ordered 4 sets of doll eyes and put them in there, and then also a set of false teeth because I knew skin made out of clay is doable. Like that is kind of believable and fun looking and weird. But when you try and do eyes or teeth made out of clay, they always tend to look kind of dumb, frankly. And there's this amazing Czech stop motion animator named Jan Svankmajer, who did a lot of work in the 70s and 80s. And I always loved his animations, and all of his, whenever he did a head in his animations, he always used doll eyes and fake teeth. Everything else was clay, the skin, everything, the nails, whatever was clay, but the eyes and the teeth were always fake eyes and teeth, and it always added this veracity and kind of creepiness that I really liked.
All right, but once again, were you making clay in your film program? How did you?
This was the first time I had done stop motion since I was in 8th grade. I took a little stop motion class in 8th grade, but that was the last time I had touched clay in a stop motion capacity.
And this was always part of the original idea when you pitched it to the musician, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, but you've never done it for 10 years or whatever, 15 years.
No, but
as opposed to a
the
kid.
thing was, I knew.
I mean, quite a leap. That's quite a leap to just say, okay, I'll do this for you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but the thing was, I think I set a situation up for myself where I wasn't doing I was doing all the easy and impressive parts of animation, which is just basic, movement of clay to simulate the likeness of a person. What's really hard in stop motion animation, especially claymation, where you're is building out environments and having the moving full characters interact with those environments. Mm-hmm. That stuff is really, really, really hard. If you're just making a face move its lips and blink occasionally, super easy in terms of the actual craft of animation, but looks very impressive and looks very handmade and is catching. So I knew.
What was your process? What was the process of actually doing that? How long? How did you start it? Was it you alone? Some Duvetine? Some primer?
So I built. We worked in this studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn, that belonged to a friend of ours who is a visual artist, and so he lives in his own studio, and he had this extra side room that he wasn't really using, and was kind enough to just let us animate in there for 2 weeks. So I made a overhead camera rig out of PVC piping. That was basically, the whole thing cost $30 from Home Depot, and then attached a DSLR camera to the top of that, so it was pointing down, and then tethered a USB from that DSLR into my computer, and got this program called Dragon Frame that allows you to take photos that immediately show up in the program, and you can play back the stop motion as you're making it, so you can see if you're making any mistakes.
That is really cool.
It's awesome. It's a great
I
program.
got to do one of those stop animation ones.
Oh, it's so fun.
And so how long did that process take of making it look good and correct?
I mean, we basically just did one pass of everything, like because of the ability to watch back the footage as you're doing it. Maybe you get like 30 frames in and you decide like this looks like shit, I need to change something, but you've already been able to watch back that 30 frames and you know that it looks like shit. And so it was not like we'd go back and do an entire animation multiple times. It would be like we'd maybe do 20 frames, realize something was wrong, erase those 20 frames, redo those 20 frames, and then maybe on frame 100 something would go wrong, and so we'd go back like 5 frames, erase those 5 frames. So it was never like redoing entire sections, more so
Right.
like redoing little bits.
And
So you
was
were
it to the
basically-
song? Was it with the song? So you got the mouth
in
movement?
some cases, yeah. With the mouth movement, I took a video of myself singing the song, and in the Dragon Frame program, you can overlay a reference video on top of the live footage. So I moved through my reference video footage frame by frame, and then was able to see my face animated over his face and move the lips to match my lips.
Very cool.
So that when I played back the song, it matched.
I mean, that's cool. That sounds
Yeah. It was
sounds
cool.
tedious though.
It's actually, that's what I was afraid of, but it's really not, because when you have a clear plan of what you're doing, it really is just like rote execution. And so I had an art assistant in there with me who was the production designer, Emily Schubert, who's like a brilliant hair and makeup artist. And she was there helping me out with it. And like, having suggestions about maybe the eyes should blink at this point, or maybe there should be sweat, or like adding all these really important little details.
Wait, that sweat
and-
was practical? Was that sweat practical that I saw drip down
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
face? That was a piece of clay?
Yeah.
A clay sweat, meaning.
When he starts pulling the chains really fast, and there's like sweat dripping down his face. Yeah, that's like little droplets of clay.
Oh wow! And was it composited? Was that, or is that done all on that one model?
All on the one model. Yeah.
Oh, so that was like almost practical everything. For that.
Yeah. I mean, really, all this video was just like compositing things in. Like
Right.
all the animation stuff was done for real with real objects. It was just about inserting it into the footage in a believable way. So it was not nearly as tedious as I thought, just because when you're just sort of executing and doing the things that you plan to do,
Right.
you can have a conversation with someone. You can be thinking about other things. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to a lot of interviews, and I just kind of like did the work.
Right.
And it's something you can kind of like shut off your intellectual brain and just let your creative brain do the actual execution.
How long was the planning for this video?
The planning was a couple weeks. It was a little pushed because I had a month-long job at the beginning of it, so I had to wait for that job to kind of like run its course. And then once that was done, I was able to be like, all right, this is the period that we're going to be in the studio. I need to have these supplies ready. And then it was just getting in there and actually making it work.
You know what I like about this? Because, when we go on a film set, there's so many people waiting to do things. And it's nice when it's just like you and one other person.
Oh, it's so great. You
Right.
like get to the studio and immediately you're working. Like you're not waiting on anybody.
Right.
You're doing the work and making it happen.
I'm going into animation from now on.
It's the way to do it.
No, but there is always a sexiness to like being a filmmaker. Like I just want to go out there with my actors. I don't want to have 30 people around me always telling me they want to eat.
It's the limitations of a medium where somebody's got to hold the boom and somebody's got to hold the camera and somebody's got to put up the lights, and like
Right.
until we can figure out a way to do all of that stuff in post and not have it look like a terrible computer generated
Well, robots are coming to
terrible
help us.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Google will solve that. So yeah, I mean, going back to like using high-res images correctly, because a lot of people always, since I do shoot a lot with high-res cameras like the Red Dragon, and most of the time people just scale it down to 1080 and that's what they think. That's all you get out of it. No. You can actually crop in, you can rotate, you can pan, you can do all these cool things with it that make you more creative, as a
Yeah.
director and editor.
And I think there's definitely there's a look to a 6K image that has been zoomed into 1920 by 1080 that is different than what it would look like if you put the proper lens on and just shot it at that
Right.
scale. So I don't think it's an entire replacement. And I think I obviously think that like putting on the proper lens and shooting at the scale that you want is always going to look better. But it's again that question of priorities in low budget filmmaking. That if I don't have the ability to get a motion tracking rig to do all of the things that I want to do perfectly and like not kill myself or just end up having it look shitty or have it take 6 months in post, this is what I need to do, and it's a quick solution, and it allows me to make the thing that I want to make by myself, in
Yeah, I mean,
post
it's a
it.
quick solution, but honestly, it's also the right one for what you're doing right now.
Oh, completely,
Because
yeah.
setting up that motion control rig, your process would basically stop. Your quick creativeness of just keep going and listening to podcasts at the same time would immediately end, because now you'd be consumed by a technical nightmare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it wouldn't take 2 weeks, and I wouldn't be able to have the space that I would be in because the guy said you have 2 weeks.
Right.
And suddenly I'd have to compromise in all these places.
In other places, right? It would affect
Yeah,
other parts
exactly.
of the production.
Totally. And so obviously it's something I'd like to have to not, zoom in and post. I don't think it's the ideal way to do things, but considering the situation that I'm in, it's the one that means I have to sacrifice the least amount of like actually what ends up on screen in
It's
the end.
funny you say that because you do so many zoom ins in the videos. In the first video we watched, that wet leather. I mean, how many actual zoom ins? Like, it seems like as you dolly in, at some point you just take off and you start to zoom, but it fits perfectly into it. It's not
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it takes me out of it,
Totally. And I'm always trying to check my brain of like, all right, the average person watching this on YouTube on, a quarter of the size of their laptop screen while they're at work one day, who's just like, oh, a cool music video. Let me see. Like, what is that person really going to care about? Because
Right.
if I'm checking my pretensions at the door, that's who's watching this music video,
Right.
And is
The
that
fan.
person going
The fan
Yeah,
is
the fan.
watching. Yeah.
and if that person is not going to care about me dolly zooming, then I should do it if it's going to look the coolest.
And you know what? It's also using it correctly because you're doing it in an environment where you can't tell. Like if we were on a real practical locations and we're doing a Scorsese shot in the middle of some street, that would probably be a shitty solution.
Sure.
But having said that, you have like a black background. We can't tell perspective of what's going on. So
Totally.
your zoom almost looks like a dolly shot if you kept it going correctly, So
Yeah. And if you kind of mix it in with a real dolly shot, it's harder for people to tell where one ends and the next begins.
Right.
And, frankly, I don't have enough track to get that close to his face or
Right.
that far away from him. I don't have, the ability to do it as many times as it would take for the focus puller to get a move that fast from so far away to so close perfectly right, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. It's really hard. So I deal with what I've got.
So I'll ask you one last question. That second video, you went from $1,000 budget to what? And did you pay for it?
I went from 1,000 to 1,600 on that one. So it was
Wow.
a small leap, small leap.
Well, you're getting bigger. I could see that little ramp happening, going up.
Totally. We shot on a nicer camera. We shot that one on an FS7. I funded half that video. It was only, 800 is a relatively small amount to sink into
Yeah.
a project that you're going to be working on for multiple months, and that you feel like a lot of people are going to see and you're going to be proud of. We shot that on an FS7. The animation took 2 weeks. The actual shooting took 2 days. We did it in the same art studio that I did all the animation. He just let us post up in front of, and put up a black background and then a green screen when we needed it. And there was 1 day for shooting all the stuff of Zane, who's the guy in the band, all of his shots. And then there was another day for shooting all the green screen elements. So like the smoke and the arm holding the chain and little things like that.
It sounds once again that you had a pretty good plan going in.
Totally. I mean, you can't not. You have to know exactly how you're going to do all of this from, the first stages of animation straight through, color correcting it at the very end of it, and know how long, roughly, everything is going to take. Otherwise, you could find yourself in a situation where just schedule keeps rolling and it goes out of control because you just don't realize what you've gotten yourself into, which is what happened with the first video. I thought it would take like 2 months to figure it out. It took way longer than that.
You don't want to admit how long?
No. It took me from, God, yeah. This I like actually still am a bit embarrassed as to how long it took. We shot it in August of 2014. I went on to Bloodline, a movie that I AC'd for you in that September, and then got around to actually like editing the video in October, and then was doing all the effects work on and off with like other jobs popping in from November through April.
This is an important point, that one of the things you're doing as a director when you make these deals with the band members, they don't have the money to pay a production company to do it in 2 weeks.
No.
What everybody does, if you're trying to make a big show of it. They're basically trusting you also, saying, okay, we assume you're going to finish this one day. Within whatever. Do you give them a time period? Do you say, look, I'm not going to finish this in a week. I'm going to finish this in 3 months?
It was a
do you tell them
rolling
that?
thing. I was like, I think I can have it done by December, like back in September.
Right. And they're like,
and then
what do they say to that?
they said, "Great, sounds good." And then at a certain point, I hit this understanding of what was really going to happen, and I emailed them and I was like, "Hey, listen, guys, there's a version of this video that I can crank out by December, but it's way crappier than the version that I can give you if you just give me the time to do it right." And they're like, "We totally understand. The album's not, or the EP is not going to be done for a while. Like, no one's waiting on us to release this. Like, we should wait till it's good for us to release it." And so I'm
Right.
very grateful that they allowed that.
And no, and it's cool. Obviously, the massive amount of work that you're doing, basically for nothing, is
Less than nothing.
well, it's yes,
Yeah.
minus nothing. But it's important. It's important to point out to anyone listening who's actually wants to create anything, music videos, short films, narratives. The amount of work you're going to do for the money you're going to get is never going to equate to anything with the time you put into it. Never.
No, I mean, I'm like I said at the beginning.
Maybe
I'm
in 20
doing it-
years.
Yeah, maybe in 20 years. But honestly, I can't even concern myself with that right now. All I'm really concerned with is the fact that, like, doing this gives me a satisfaction that other types of work just do not. And in order to be like a happy, functioning human being in this world, I need this to like be that. So if it means that I'm losing money or I'm not making any money, as long as it's continuing my like creative satisfaction, that's the primary reason I'm in it.
All of this hard work, it seems like it's sort of paying off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in the last like month or two, I'm getting offers from people who are not my friends, people who have just seen the music videos that you've showed, and think that I would be a good candidate to direct their music videos, which feels like it's just everything's kind of like rolled one project into the next since I started, but this does feel like a significant jump in that. It's people basically just saying, here's a lump sum of money. We trust you to do with it what you will. And it's for the first time I feel like, wait, maybe I'm kind of a director now. Like maybe this isn't just something that I say, oh, I'm doing it on the side for a hobby, and that it feels like an important step.
And I agree. So you have, basically they found you through the videos? How do they find you?
They may be connected peripherally, like a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend or something, but they're not people I've ever personally met before. They emailed me to say, hey, I saw one of your videos. Would you be interested in submitting a treatment for X or Y artist? Here's the budget. Here's what we're thinking. We need it by this date. Please let us know.
Are you inclined to tell us what the budget is?
I'm getting things in the like 5,000 range, which is like very doable enough so that I can actually start like paying a pittance to the people who have been kind enough to like work for me for free on like a favor basis.
Well, here's the thing. Do they know that you're also the editor? Do they know you're doing all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I that's kind of part of my pitch is that like, listen, I'm going to be cheaper than a lot of other directors because I'm going to give you a kind of lump sum to, produce it, direct it, in some cases shoot it, edit it, do the effects work, and color correct it. And if you split those jobs,
okay, you're hired. You're hiring you for my next project.
If you split those jobs into 6 people, you're going to be paying triple the amount, and getting frankly a less slick looking video.
No, absolutely. I actually like the fact that you've taken the helm of the whole thing. especially when you have low budgets. There's really no other way to do it. If you started hiring editors who don't care and motion graphics people who don't give a shit except their day rate, it'll never work.
And also, they're just, those people are less inclined to experiment because they want to, deliver a reliable product that, that works, and that they don't have to redo their work or anything because they tried something wonky. When it's just me in the editing room and I'm the sole creative presence, I can experiment. I can try weird things. I can, try really screwing up the color correction or trying some weird thing in After Effects. I'm not just like executing what the easiest or most straightforward method of doing this would be. So I think it not, in addition to being cheaper, it also ends up allowing me to kind of put a stamp on every single part of the ultimate product.
One last question, because you led to something interesting. How much experimentation do you do? I thought it was all pre-planned. I thought you planned out basically, I want this shot to do this, to do that, rotate, blah, blah, blah.
It is totally pre-planned, but in certain situations, I'll find that an effect that I thought was going to work great just doesn't work the way that I wanted it to, and that's when you find yourself being kind of pushed to try different or weird things that were not necessarily a part of your plan. And in some cases, those situations where an effect didn't work out for me and I was pushed to try something different ended up being some of my favorite parts of the video. Like initially in that Humesha video, the chain that came out of his mouth, that was supposed to be a vine, like a vine from a plant that was supposed to be made out of clay. But we couldn't figure out how to make it stand in a proper way, and it's supposed to come towards the camera. And that's where I had the idea to use a chain instead, and I think the chain is one of my favorite parts of the video. And so it's those issues when you're like cornered and have to think on your feet that sometimes end up being some of the more spontaneous and memorable parts of a project. So you just have to be plan, do your homework, do all those things, but be open to the possibility of changing your ideas to make something work a little better.
All right, very cool, man. Thank you for the chat.
Thanks for having me.
So next week we have Ari Gold. He's a director, and he's made a couple of cool projects that I've seen so far. One of them is Helicopter, which is a documentary regarding the loss of one of his parents. And then another one is a film he made about air drumming. So that sounds awesome in itself. So let's chat with him and stay tuned. Bye.